good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and you know it better not be good night for some of you. Here we are again with another episode of HFLE for all of we. And today we are going to be talking about transitions. Now, before we launch into our discussion today, just want to remind you this is an initiative of the Barbados Association for Guidance Counsellors. And as such, we have guidance counselors who will be sharing with us. So over with us for the first time joining us in this lovely little program, we have Miss
Joel Jordan, Guidance Counselor, Frederick Smith Secondary School.
Right. Thank you so much, Jewel.
Glad to
And
be
we
here.
also have with us today
Charnel Clark, Guidance Counselor at the Darrell Jordan Secondary School.
And joining us via Skype is a special person who has been working along with us guidance counselors, especially at the St. Michael's School, for quite a while. And I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamal Howell, and I am a practice social worker.
Right. So we have got all four of us today, and we'll be talking about transitions. Now tell me something. Have you ever had to go from one thing to the next? Even something as simple as going from morning to afternoon. You see how the sun changes? That is a transition, a time transition. Some of you may have gone from primary school to secondary school. For those of you who are still waiting in primary school, you would have gone to primary school from preschool, and that's also a transition. Some of you have changed in height. I remember when a good number of you were, as we like to say, knee high to a grasshopper. You were this big, and now you are that big. And you've transitioned in size. So what does that tell you about transitions? It's a part of life. It's inevitable, meaning that regardless of whether or not you like it, it's going to happen. We always have transition, change, movement. Sometimes it is something that we want. Other times it is something that we were not expecting, but it has to happen. But most of the time, whether it's something we want, whether it's something we're looking forward to, the transition can also be a bit scary. So we're going to be looking at transitions again today and all of the different ways that we have to deal with it. And to start, we just looked at what transitions really are. What does transition mean?
For me, transition is a journey. It's about moving throughout stages of your life. Whenever I speak about transition, and I am speaking to students, I always say to them, well, okay, you would have transitioned, or preparing to transition from primary to secondary school. So I want you to transition. At this transition, you are going to you're transitioning physically as well as emotionally as well. Well, and what you do throughout each stage of your transition is going to impact your journey throughout adolescence towards adulthood.
Great. Thank you. So ladies, now, we have a journey. What else does transition mean to you, Jewel?
Sure, so I'm thinking, Jamal said journey, and that's a very interesting word. What I use a lot is the word process, because it's not only a journey, but in terms of, and he also mentions stages. Sometimes it is a very long process. Sometimes transition also happens like in a snap. And I can give you a very quick example. In terms of your life cycle, from conception, the moment that you were conceived in your mommy's tummy, what happened was that there was a process there. It all started as just like a few little cells, then in a few days, then it matured into more cells called a blastocyst. In addition to that, the next couple of weeks, then you went from a blastocyst, you had the zygote, and then you also had the fetus, and then you were born. And that process took 9 long months just to ensure that you were the beautiful you that you are today. if you also had to look at the rapid process, I'm thinking sometimes like for some reason you go to school and then you're called into maybe a little forum with your teachers and they have to say to you, I'm very sorry to report, one of your friends may not necessarily be coming back to school anymore. Why? Because they would have transitioned maybe from Barbados to another country. So all of these are different stages. So always remember, when it comes to transitions, it is very, very important to know sometimes the process, it takes a very long time. Sometimes it's a very short process. But at the end of the day, you know, once you keep at it, once you ensure that you're utilizing the skills to take you the places that you need to go, you will get there.
Right. Thank you so much, Jewel. So we got journey
welcome.
and we got a process.
Indeed.
Jewel,
Yes.
thank you so much for that.
Oh,
Chanel,
you're welcome.
what about you?
Transitioning is all about change and acceptance. We know that sometimes transitioning from one thing to the next is about accepting that it must happen, and the moment that you accept that it's a part of life and that you have to move on, that is when you're able to deal better with the whole issue of transitioning from one stage to the next. For me, I remember I spent so many years at one particular school, and then when it came time for me to transition into another position at another school, I had to get my mind all ready. And the first day of school at my new school and in my new position, I thought I was so mentally ready until that first day, when I didn't take the usual turn at the forecross that I had to take, and I had to just turn in the other direction. It came to me as such an emotional thing, and it made me have to then get my mind ready, get myself ready. And that's what transitioning is all about, getting yourself ready mentally, physically, and however else that you have to get yourself ready.
That is so very important because, you know, we have the saying, and I believe it was TC, the Calypsonian, that sang about it a couple of years ago. You know what you have, you don't know what you're going to get, right? Even if it's something that you're looking forward to. This thing about transition means that something is going to be very different.
Yes.
And we got to prepare ourselves for that, as Chanel has said.
Yeah.
Whether it's that journey, whether that is that process, or whether it is a change, we need to be ready for it. So look, some of the things that will be different would be anything from new friends, a new route, a new space. I remember
New environment.
a new environment. I can actually, you know, understand what Chanel went through that first day, because I remember I was living in a little apartment at one point in time. And finally, I got a chance to move into our house.
Oh, yeah.
And we were looking forward to that, everything. We did the move, we were in the house, and then I went to work. And the first day I was going home from work, where did I end up? In front of the old apartment, right? So sometimes it takes a little while for us to adjust
Definitely.
to the transition. Would you all agree with that?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
We
Yeah,
do.
so
Yes, definitely.
take some time to adjust. And we don't all adjust the same way.
Right.
We don't all adjust the same way. So let us look at some of the areas that show that we still have a little bit of tweaking to do for our adjustment, right? What are some of the things that would show that we are not really adjusting as easily as, you know, we should or could to make that transition smoother? Anybody want to go first?
Okay, I'll go. So I'm thinking, especially when it comes to students who are at that adolescent stage of development, one of the things is that I find, you know, you kind of think whenever a change comes, that's the end of what you had before. But that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes what you have to do and what you have to understand too is that even in that same change that we were talking about, that same process that we were just mentioning, several things happen. But the point I want to get over is that sometimes we are not we do not have the capacity to do things any different. This is what it is, and this is what we have to deal with. So what I say to students all the time is get something so simple, a notepad, and if it is something that it is bothering you a lot, write it down, make a note of it, because what you want to do from there is to speak with responsible adults to help you or to assist you through that process. Yes, you're not necessarily talking to any and everybody, because you may seek advice from persons who may not necessarily give you sound advice. And then another thing too is that you kind of tend to think that nobody understands how I am feeling. So emotionally, you probably get disturbed a little bit and thinking, okay, so this is it for me. Here I am. I was asked to move into a school that I do not want to be in. I have no friends. I have nobody to speak with, nobody to relate to. But the change, as it is, it must start with you as well. And sometimes the best way to get help is to communicate your feelings. So one of the things that I would say in preparation, Donna, for young people to be able to adapt to and to adjust to changes is to definitely seek that change, or rather seek assistance to getting that change in from the right directions. Your guidance counselor, your parents, responsible adults, your teachers, and they can assist you in getting through that process.
That's very good. That's very good. So take note of that, students. Ask for help. Now, Jamal, now that we have you here again, do you think that there's a difference in how boys generally react to transitions than how girls react to them, to transitions?
Yes, definitely. Because I know growing up, you would always hear the sentiments, well, girls mature faster than boys, and boys would a bit more attention, and boys, they don't seem to be able to keep quiet in the classroom like girls. So I think when you talk about boys, you have to look at a different perspective, because boys, as we know, they learn differently. Yes, there may be some boys who are able to sit in a classroom and pay attention to the teacher. Then there are some boys that they have to be constantly moving. So when I look at that aspect, I also think about their learning style. Very important, because when you look at boys, it's about their attitude. And you can often see when boys are not motivated, when they're disinterested in something, by noting their attitude, how they're behaving, and even in terms of comments that they would make. So in situations like that, I think parental support is especially important when we talk about boys, because with some boys, they need someone there to ensure that they're on track in terms of any task that they may have, because this in terms helps them with that transition as well.
Okay, thank you. So they need additional assistance that they may not necessarily come out and ask for, but they may show that they need it in different ways, in the way they behave and the way they think about doing their tasks and stuff, and the way they bring themselves to the work that they have to do. So it's very important that we realize that they may need this assistance, even though the boys, you may not always ask for it. Because sometimes you also have to understand too that when boys are with other boys, they don't want to seem as though they're weak. And sometimes they think that a boy would think that they're weak if they ask for help. You're not weak, young man. You're not weak at all. You're very strong if you realize that you need some assistance. So thank you, Jamal. Chanel.
Okay, in terms of transitioning and dealing with change, we always have to remember, as Joel said, I think Jamal said it as well, about the whole process and giving it a chance to work. Yes, in a previous episode, we were talking about the whole point of creativity and giving things a chance and stuff like that. So in transitioning, we have to give the process, or we have to give this new environment, this new feeling, this new situation a chance to work, because it may feel foreign at the beginning. It feels strange. But when you give it a chance and you open up and you allow things to happen, then you get more comfortable, you get more accustomed, and you may be so surprised. One day you ask yourself, but what was I concerned about? What was I unhappy about, you know? So you just have to give your change a time, a chance to work.
I love that. Give your change a chance. I think I'm going to write that one down now. That looks like one of them T-shirt logos. Give your change a chance. I like that.
Indeed.
All right. Yeah. So, and that's also very important because, you know, a lot of people go into a situation and they say, I'm going to hate it.
Yes.
I don't like this one bit. Okay? So give change a chance. All right? And on that note, with giving change a chance, I'm also thinking that if you also contribute to how you shape your new environment or your new setting or your new friend or your new like or your new whatever, it also helps because it lets you know that you have a choice. No matter how much transitioning or processing or how long the journey is, at the center of your journey, your transition, your process, and your change is you. And you have a choice.
Yeah.
So sometimes people feel as though I did not have a say in this. I didn't get a chance to be a part of the decision in this. But you're there now. So what can you do about shaping your future within this transition, within this change?
Donna, you said something very important there in terms of attitude. And that is one thing sometimes that can block us from transitioning into where we are supposed to be. If we don't have the right attitude, if we refuse to see it in a different light, then that can definitely be a blockage in terms of us accepting and moving on to the next stage.
Right.
And then also, too, if I can add in terms of your feelings, you know, like I mentioned just now about the emotional feelings, but sometimes like physically too, there are a range of emotions that just happen to manifest themselves in a lot of different ways.
Right.
And when you find that these things are happening, one of the things that you can do is to really come to terms with who you are. Ask yourself, is this what I want for me? Ask yourself, you know what? Well, yes, this is what I am faced with now, but am I handling it the right way? Am I dealing with it correctly? Positive and negative feelings, sometimes they're, you know, like the other folks have this saying about oil and water not mixing.
Yes.
This is exactly what happens sometimes in transitions. Because that you were nurtured and you were nurtured in your past experiences, it's really hard now to just take on other new experiences. And what you do not realize is sometimes that with these new experiences also comes new opportunities to learn new things, to do new skills. So yes, you need to be patient. Yes, you need to speak with other responsible individuals. I cannot put that over enough. But in terms of your feelings, honor them. Learn to be assertive. Use statements, for example. Okay, be honest with yourself. I am not feeling so good right now. I do not appreciate the fact, as Donna just said, that I would have not been included in this journey to take me from one side of the island to the other side of the island. I do not feel good about it. But the thing is about it, don't stay there. And we're not staying there simply because if we stay there, then as my colleague just mentioned, and it's so true, sure now, what happens is that if we decide that we are going to stay there, then nothing happens. And you know what? Life will go on. That transition is still taking effect, but it's how you transition that's going to really make the difference.
Thank you. And I got to say here now, we are transitioning from having time to being out of time. So I'm going to give each of you 5 seconds to just give your last words on transition. And we're going to start with Jamal, because he's the only guy we have on this panel right now. Jamal?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so what I would advise for those children out there and those teens, adolescents who are, going through this transition is to let them know that they have the power. They are the ones who are at home. they have the power to say, well, am I going to sit here and let this whole situation just, impact me in a negative manner? Or am I going to get up and take control of what I'm going to be doing on a daily basis? And that includes my tasks and so forth. And always, what I would recommend for them as well is to get involved in something new. I mean, the fact that you're at home, it does not mean that you can't do anything new. Take up a new task, get involved in some baking, painting. I mean, there's so many activities that you can do within your home. So remember that you have the power. You have the power. And I would also call it, you have the power of choice. Okay? So always remember that.
Thank you so much, Jamal. You have the power. Okay, thank you. That was a great 5 seconds. Chanel.
I want you to know that change is never easy, especially when you're accustomed to doing something one way all the time. But attitude is important. And when you have the right attitude, you can take every opportunity for whatever this change may bring. So stay positive.
Thank you. Stay positive. You have the power and stay positive. Yes, Jewel.
So I would just wrap this up just by saying that when it comes to transitions, it may be inevitable, meaning to say it has to happen. But one of the things is you need to be focused. You also need to be strong. And you need to communicate your feelings, because it's when you communicate your feelings, you have a different mindset into how to actually deal with this change.
Thank you so much, Jewel.
You're welcome.
And now I'm challenging you to see what advice you can give to someone who is maybe transitioning into your school, whether it's going to be in first form or whether it's going to be in any of the other year groups. What would you tell some other student coming to your school for the first time from another school in Barbados or even from outside of Barbados to make their process and their journey and their change easy in your environment? All right? And you can put that little note in your HFLE chat to your teacher so you can discuss it at that time. Or if you can send that to bagc@gmail.com and just put in the subject area transitions so we know exactly what it's from. And we'll be able to have a host of good, positive ideas that we can share with everybody throughout the island. And that is unfortunately the end of our little class today. I hope that you enjoyed it and got something from it.
Yeah.
And as we transition from here to something else, we want to tell you, remember that HFLE is for all of we. Goodbye, stay safe, see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.